On the broadcast tonight, the two Koreas wrap up a second round of rare high-level talks, and next week's reunions for families separated by the Korean War will take place as scheduled. $770 billion. Now that's the total of Korea's public sector debt in 2012, only highlighting the urgency for President Park's reform drive in the sector. Over in Sochi, it was a rough day in the world of short-track speed skating, where competitors live on a razor's edge, and the difference between winning and wipeout can be just a bump. From Korea's second medal won by Hwang Sung-hee to Olympic champion Kyou-hyun's practice session, we've got it all covered. Early edition begins now. It is 4 a.m. in Washington, 1 p.m. in Sochi, and 6 on a Friday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us.
Now, high-level officials from the two Koreas met again at the truce village of Panmunjom on this Friday for the second time in just 3 days.
The South Korean chief delegate just gave a press briefing on the results of today's meeting at Seoul's Unification Ministry.
Right, for the details, let's go live to our correspondent Hwang Sung-hee at Seoul's Unification Ministry. Now, Sung-hee, did the two Koreas reach an agreement?
Good evening, guys. Kim Kyou-hyun, South Korea's chief delegate, just gave a press briefing here at the Unification Ministry, and I have some good news for you guys. The two Koreas will hold reunions for families separated since the Korean War, as planned from February 20th to the 25th. Now, next week's family reunions will be the first such event in more than 3 years, and also signals a potential improvement in inter-Korean ties. The two sides were at odds over the issue, and Kim said the North came to today's meeting with its stance that the reunions and South Korea's joint military drills with the U.S. cannot take place simultaneously. At their first round of talks Wednesday, which lasted for 14 hours with no concrete results, Pyongyang had demanded that Seoul postpone the key resolve and full legal exercises, which begin on February 24th, overlapping with the reunions. Kim said his delegation consistently explained to the North that it's the South Korean government's stance not to link humanitarian issues with the military drills, and that holding the reunion as scheduled will be a meaningful step towards improved bilateral ties. The two Koreas also agreed to stop throwing insults at each other to increase trust. Now, ending cross-border slandering was part of North Korea's so-called important proposal to the South that was made last month. Today's talks, which were the first high-level inter-Korean talks in 7 years, could become an opportunity to improve inter-Korean ties as the officials agreed to hold additional talks down the road, although no specific date has been set yet. Guys?
Well, it seems like it was a long process, and it kept many of us on the edge of our seats, but better inter-Korean ties, always good to hear. Thank you, Sung-hee, for that report.
That was our Hwang Sung-hee reporting on the latest on the two Koreas' agreement to hold family reunions next week. Now, Beijing is where U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is today after a 2-day visit to Seoul, and there he met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The U.S. delegate said he had a very constructive and positive meeting with President Xi on issues involving North Korea. Now, Kerry reportedly called on China to help bring North Korea to nuclear disarmament talks. Kerry expressed hope for improved Sino-U.S. ties and invited Xi to visit the U.S. in the near future. After his meeting with President Xi, Kerry had separate meetings with other high-ranking officials, including his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Now, Wang emphasized that Beijing and Washington need to improve their ties and respect each other's core interests and major concerns.
Earlier in his Asia tour in Seoul, Kerry met with President Park Geun-hye and other key officials and reaffirmed that Seoul and Washington are in agreement when it comes to the denuclearization of North Korea.
Today, we reaffirm our commitment to a common goal, which is the verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in a peaceful manner. And we are committed to going to talks only if there is a clarity with respect to the steps that need to be taken for denuclearization by the North.
Washington's top diplomat has said that China can do more now to urge North Korea to begin taking action to come into compliance with its international obligations. It was Kerry's second visit to Seoul and his fifth trip to Asia as America's top diplomat.
Meanwhile, North Korea appears to have accelerated excavation at its nuclear bomb testing site in the northeast of that country, but a test is not believed to be imminent. Referring to its new satellite images, the U.S.-Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University says North Korea likely started work last May on a new tunnel at its Punggye site where it has conducted its 3 previous nuclear tests, the most recent being in February 2013.
The institute estimates the pile of earth excavated from the tunnel has doubled over the last few weeks. The institute adds it's unlikely Pyongyang intends to use this tunnel for its next nuclear test since 2 other tunnels at the site appears to be complete.
Korea's public sector debt was over 820 trillion won. That's roughly $770 billion in 2012, or about $15,000 of debt per capita. And this is according to a new government data. Arirang's Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Korea's public sector debt represented 64.5% of the nation's gross domestic product in 2012. The finance ministry said Friday that the total amount of debt owed by the central and provincial governments and non-financial state-run companies stood at over 820 trillion won, or roughly $770 billion as of the end of 2012. That is up more than $63 billion from the previous year. The ministry said the debt figures represent new government data that's based on the latest international guidelines set by the International Monetary Fund. The data excludes money borrowed by state-run financial companies like the Bank of Korea and the Korea Exim Bank. The ministry explained that including the debt of state-run financial companies could distort the final figures because their deposits are counted as debt. With the new data, the ministry aims to offer the public a clearer picture of the debt situation in the public sector and encourage public sector businesses to operate more transparently. The Korean government recently launched a drive to reform the nation's public organizations, urging them to reduce debt and streamline their business operations. The nation's public organizations have been facing mounting criticism for having lax management despite their growing debt. The IMF said that the new government data is a measure of the administration's will to make data collection practices more transparent and bring them in line with international standards. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The Korean government will implement a new system that would allow local governments to declare themselves bankrupt. The Public Administration Ministry presented the plan to President Park on Friday, which aims to restore local governments to financial health. Now, it will also hold local government heads responsible for their poor fiscal management rather than putting the burden on the public. Once a bankruptcy is declared, the central government or high-level office will intervene to reform the local government's finances. President Park had previously said local governments' lax financial management practices are a big burden to the nation and ordered the ministry to implement strong measures to control local government debt, which had ballooned to $4.7 billion as of 2012.
A 3-month suspension of business at the 3 leading credit card companies hit by the worst data leak in the country's history starts next Monday. This is part of efforts by financial regulators to better protect the public's personal information. Our Kwon So-ah has the details.
3 months of not doing business. That's the punishment KB Gukmin Card, NH Nongyop Card, and Lotte Card will get for their involvement in the biggest personal data leak in Korean history. The Financial Supervisory Service said Friday a proposed suspension of business at the 3 companies will start Monday and continue to May 16th. The main focus of the suspension is on banning the companies from taking on new customers. Providing credit card loans and cash advances to new contractors will also be forbidden. Existing customers, however, won't feel the effects of the ban as they will be provided with financial services as usual. The suspension will also exclude operations related to the public interest, such as the issuance of student identification cards. In the end, the suspension is expected to cost the three companies 100,000 clients a month and a combined 50 billion won or $47 million during the 3-month period. An official at the Financial Services Commission referred to it as the harshest penalty the firms could have received, not only because of the losses incurred, but because 3 months is the longest suspension allowed by law. The suspension is expected to be finalized by the FSC at a meeting on Sunday, and in the coming month, the FSC will also consider recommendations for dismissals of CEOs and executives deemed responsible for the leak. In related news, a suspension of telemarketing operations at financial and insurance companies put in place as a preventative measure at the end of last month was lifted on Friday, thanks to indemnity reports submitted by company executives. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Death and tax is hard to avoid, especially when you're one of the richest person in Korea. Lee Jae-hyun, the chairman of Korea's 14th largest conglomerate CJ Group, was sentenced on Friday to 4 years in prison for tax evasion and embezzlement. He was earlier found guilty of misappropriating roughly $156 million in company assets at offshore ghost companies and dodging taxes. On top of the 4-year prison term, the Seoul Central District Court ordered Lee, the country's 10th richest man, to pay a fine of about $24 million. The sentence comes as President Park Geun-hye has been calling pressing officials to clamp down on corporate malpractice to collect funds from tax evaders for welfare projects. He has been hospitalized at a Seoul hospital since last year, citing poor health.
Well, this Valentine's Day marks the 8th day of the 2014 Winter Games, and the sweetest treat an athlete in Sochi can get is a well-earned gold medal or a medal of any kind, actually.
That's right. How sweet it will be. They've all sacrificed so much to merely get the chance to shine at that one point in the Olympic Games. For more on the headlines from Sochi, we now go over to our Olympics correspondent, Song Ji-sun. So where do we start this evening, Ji-sun?
Good evening, Ganyoung and Daniel. After garnering the second medal from short track last night, it's been a quiet day for the Team Korean, but the domestic and foreign press had a field day following around Korea's figure queen, Kyou-hyun. Less than 24 hours after arriving in Sochi, Kim got right to work training at the practice venue by the Iceberg Skating Palace. She said adapting to the ice conditions in the main rink would be the most important thing, and added that she skated on similar types of ice in the past. After a few hours of warming up, Kim made herself at home, jumping triples. The latest short program is scheduled for next Wednesday, and official practice sessions at the event venue start Sunday. Flawless execution of the quadruple jump is a must if you want to finish at the lead of the pack in men's figure skating these days, along with a triple combination and, of course, smooth steps and spins. The male skater who did all of that the best last night is the 19-year-old Japanese skater Yuzuru Hanyu, who is coached by Brian Orser, the same man that coached Kim Hyun-na when she won her gold medal back in Vancouver. Hanyu carried out all the elements in style to earn over 101 points for the short program. It looks like Canadian world champion Patrick Chance got to pull it off in the long skating tonight, trailing Hanyu by just 4 points now. In the meantime, Russia's figure skating star Yevgeny Plushenko withdrew from the short program and retired from the Olympic competitions and competitive figure skating altogether. The 4-time Olympian led his nation to victory in the team event earlier, but could not recover from his injury and called it quits for the singles event. Like Plushenko, athletes often shoot for as many medal events as possible, and sometimes even enter events they don't fully expect to win. Although training the most as a short-distance sprinter, Yi Sang-hwa also entered the 1,000 meters. She's not vying for a podium finish, but was still one of the top 12 fastest speed skaters for this event. China's Zhang Hong clocked in at a minute 14.02 seconds to win the gold. The Dutch team continued its dominance in this event, taking home silver and bronze. And those are multi-medalist Arirang who won the 3,000 meters on Sunday, and Margot Boer, who earned the bronze on 500 meters. As we wrap up the first week of Sochi 2014, let's now take a closer look at the medal count, where you need a dozen medals to crack the top 5. Germany has garnered the most golds, with 4 of them coming from the luge. The Netherlands follow with 4 gold medals each, with Canada, Norway, the Netherlands, and the U.S. running neck and neck from 2nd through 5th. Team Korea stays in 13th place with a speed skating gold and a short track bronze from last night. It's a laid-back Friday for many, and a romantic one in fact. Happy Valentine's to athletes and sports fans out there. But the games go on, with curling sessions well on their way, with the Korean team starting their round robin against China in just half an hour. And find out who's the new champion in men's figure skating. The free skating starts at midnight Korea time. And for the biggest aerial action, female skiers show off their tricks on a huge scale in freestyle skiing aerial. See just how big those jumps are with your own eyes. I'll bring you live results from our next newscast, and I'll see you guys from Sochi next week with more stories as we head into the second week. Kan-young?
Thank you, Ji-sun, for that, and we look forward to getting the latest on the Sochi Olympics fresh from the very site on Monday.
Well, moving on with the Sochi Winter Olympics in full swing, there is increased awareness about some winter sports that usually fly well under the radar here in Korea.
Well, for the plucky few that have picked the sports up, the lack of proper training facilities in Korea has not stopped them becoming Olympians. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
Skeleton racer Yoon Sung-bin only hopped on a sled a year ago. But before you know it, Yoon became the first Korean to qualify for the Olympics in the sport. For now, his goal is to place in the top 15. But going forward, he has even bigger dreams.
I'm looking at the long term for the Olympics, and to gain experience, I will try to show you my progress since the summer.
Korea's ski jump team failed to qualify for the final on the normal hill ski jump this week. But the athletes have put their disappointment aside and are now focused on qualifying for the large hill ski jump competition.
Up
to 30th place gets to compete in the final, and our goal is to do just that. But personally, I would like to place in the top 10.
Curling is another sport that did not get much love before. But the other day, Team Korea's ladies team shocked everyone by putting up a great fight against the #1 seed, Sweden. Their record stands at 2 wins and 2 losses in Sochi, and they are scheduled to face China for the 5th round. The team needs 6 wins out of 9 preliminary round matches to win a ticket to the semifinals. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2. Korean and Chinese nationals residing in Australia have agreed to put up a number of monuments across the nation that honor victims forced into sexual slavery by Japan during times of war. Public leaders from each community decided after a meeting this week to work together to urge Japan to admit its past wrongdoings and make amends. No timetable was given for when and where the monuments might go up or what they will consist of. The two sides also came up with a list of 10 objectives, and it includes Japan apologizing for the repeated visits by high-ranking officials to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine and urging the U.S. to block Tokyo's move toward rearmament. Meanwhile, the push to better promote the Korean name for the body of water that separates Korea and Japan is spreading in the U.S. Following up on the success seen in the state of Virginia, New York is also considering similar legislation. And one of the people behind this grassroots movement in Washington sat down with our Kim Han-ul to explain how it all began.
54-year-old Peter Kim witnessed a moment that will go down in the history of Korean Americans. It all started 2 years ago with a conversation he had with his son, who was in 5th grade at the time.
I asked my son, Chris, do you know the sea between Korea and Japan? Yes, Daddy. What's the name of it? Sea of Japan. So I really got upset. And I told him that it's not true. It's EC, and you call it Tonghae. And he said, Daddy, it's in the textbook. That's how I learned in schools.
That's when Peter decided to take action. He went on to form a group which later spearheaded a grassroots movement of Korean Americans in the D.C. metro area.
I mean, there were a lot of people coming from Washington area, driving 2 hours to Richmond. They had to get up 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a cold weather here. Sometimes it was snowing, but still, senior citizen people, they just, wanted to go and show up at the General Assembly and pressure the Democratic, the delegates and senators to vote for EC bill.
However, the long and arduous journey was far from easy.
The most difficult one was the House Education Subcommittee, 9 members. Governor McAuliffe's staff actually went to them to stop the bill, and they actually did, and it was a 4-4 tie. They had to vote again and barely passed in 5-4.
Although last week's victory in Virginia means the same law will be applied to 7 other states in the southeastern U.S., Peter Kim says his hopes do not stop there.
So the journey in Virginia has come to an end, but do you think this journey should stop or continue elsewhere?
I think it should continue. I did my part, and other Korean Americans should step up and stick together and continue this movement until 2017, where IHO meets, and hopefully IHO agrees on both names, EC and Sea of Japan.
Kim Han-ul, Arirang News, Washington.
A volcano in the eastern part of Indonesia's Java Island erupted on Thursday, forcing tens of thousands of people out of their homes. Officials issued an evacuation alert for 200,000 people living within a 10-kilometer radius around Mount Kelud. Local media outlets are reporting that 2 people have died beneath collapsed houses, and 4 airports in the area have been temporarily closed due to low visibility. Mount Kelud has been rumbling for weeks and is one of the most threatening active volcanoes in Indonesia. The last major eruption occurred back in 1990, and it killed dozens of people.
Well, today is the day that you get to see the full moon for the first time in the new year, according to the lunar calendar. However, in the eastern coast of this country, they're still reeling from the havoc that was caused by heavy snowfall, and more snow is expected starting Monday for 3 to 4 days in that area. So we wish them all the best with the recovery efforts there. However, let's go over to Michelle Park for the weather forecast in Sochi first. So it's been a warm week for the athletes there, right?
That's right, Kyou-hyun, but temperatures are expected to get down to low of 10 degrees over the weekend.
Well, finally, the athletes get to catch some break this time.
Right, and I wish them all the best. Now, tomorrow in Sochi, skies will be cloudy and clear with some wind at times, and the temperatures will get up to 16 degrees. And now the updates for Korea. The skies will be clear to see the full moon tonight, and also we can expect a sunny day all across the nation tomorrow with highs going up to 10 degrees. So that should we make for an enjoyable weekend. The people in Gangwon province, however, will not be lucky. Expecting snow once again. Now going over to the readings, it looks like we're going to have a nice warm day tomorrow. So we'll start off the morning at -2 degrees and gets up to 8 in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will get up to 9 and 10 degrees respectively. Now down onto Jeju Island, we're finally going to see some sun. Daejeon will get up to 8, Dokdo hits 2, and Mangkeugang stays chilly at -3. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you guys.
Thank you for that, Michelle. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Che.
And I'm Moon Gon-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you right back here same time on Monday. Good night.